Right, we are at Maverick Publishing this morning, your name is Lily, and let's go and meet the team that helps Andrew put together these publications. Good morning. Can I have your name and what you do at Maverick Publishing?
And I'm designer.
Awesome. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you this fine morning?
I'm fine, thanks.
Can I have a little bit about you? Do you like long walks on the beach? Your name and what you do at Muscle Evolution? Or at Maverick Publishing, sorry.
No problem. My name is Jane Horton and I work on Fitness Magazine. I like to run a little bit and keep fit and party sometimes.
Awesome. So the word on the street is this gentleman keeps an eye on you guys on social media. Your name, sir, and give us a little bit about your day and what you do here.
My name's Gareth, and I'm the digital content manager for Maverick Publishing. I'm responsible for all of the online content as well as the stuff you see on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cool. Thank you very much. I don't think we need an introduction, but I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Werner. I work for Muscle Evolution.
Okay.
I'm doing the editing. You can see here on the board all our stories. We write for the magazine and the web. Muscle Evolution, fitness, and fit disease.
All three at once. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Lekker man.
Thank you, Werner.
Okay.
Chip. Here's Mr. C's office. He'll be in shortly. Good morning.
Morning!
Your name and your function at Maverick Publishing.
The name is Leonie Needham and I'm Operations Manager at Maverick Publishing. Just make sure that everything gets done and
The woman
things are
behind the
full.
man.
Exactly. That everything functions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes.
Can I have a quick introduction of who you are and what you do at Maverick Publishing, please?
Sure. My name is Pedro. I'm the managing editor for the group. I'm also the editor for Fitness Edition magazine. So basically I'm in charge of putting all the content together, coming up with ideas, and I do a lot of writing for both Fitness and Fitness Edition.
Okay.
And also do a bit of editing across Muscle Evolution.
Awesome. Thanks, Pedro.
My pleasure.
Have a great morning. Let's see, who else can we dig out in these offices? Good morning.
Morning. Are you recording?
Yes, I am.
Ah, okay.
Okay, quick intro of yourself.
Yeah.
And what do you do at Maverick Publishing?
I am Tanya. I am the editor for Fitness Magazine. I'm one of the the co-founder for Maverick, and I do art direction on Muscle Evolution as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Sweet.
The team.
It's double-sided, so you have to just...
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good day, sports fans. Today we are with probably one of the most influential people in South African bodybuilding.
Thank you, Jobs.
And maybe Indian bodybuilding, hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon.
So Mr. Carruthers. Mind if I call you Mr. Carruthers or?
Very formal, but if you insist.
I'll call you Andrew.
Okay, call me.
Cool. Okay, so what I like to do with these is try and get a bit of context of who you are.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about Andrew Carruthers, the man behind the man, or even about your childhood, or etc. etc.
Okay.
Where do you come from? Who are you?
Okay, well, starting from the beginning, just growing up, I was born in England. I was
Always wondered about that.
born and raised in Manchester, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Until the age of about 7, where we immigrated to South Africa. My mother subsequently at the time had family here. That's why we had a sudden interest in South Africa.
Okay.
I went to school like every other South African kid, government schools. I grew up in...
What high school did you go to?
I went to Greenside High School. Yeah. Greenside High School. Caught the bus to school every single day. I lived in Ferndale at the time, which was quite a distance. So I was always sort of the first on the bus and the last to get off, which was a bit of a trip every day. And then, growing up, I was never the big guy at school. I was never the first team rugby player. I was always into athletics. Hovered somewhere around the 62 kilogram mark, and decided at the end of standard 9, beginning of matric, that I needed to put on a bit of weight because I was tired of being shoved around. And that's basically how my gym career started.
Okay.
Obviously, I just developed a passion for it from there.
Awesome, cool. Okay, so as we all know, you started the magazines like a few years ago, and you've been a stalwart in the industry ever since. What led you to that point where you decided, you know what, I'm going to go into print media and I'm going to cover bodybuilding in South Africa? At the time, I mean, when I was young, I was busy bloody well saving up to buy a Flex magazine, which I think those years was like just under 100 Rand, and what made you decide? We didn't have anything like this in South Africa at the time, but what made you decide, okay, I'm going to be the one to do this for SA?
I'll tell you what I did. When I left school, I was the typical kid that didn't really know what he wanted to do with his life and was being pushed by my parents to get an education, to get a career. And if I didn't make a choice, I was going to become a nobody. I had that kind of pressure on me from my parents. And
sure, you didn't have Indian parents.
And back then it was obviously, your parents want the best for you. They either want you to become a doctor, a vet, a scientist, or something that's going to make decent money and become a successful, businessman. And I chose to do architecture because I've always been very good at drawing. I've always been very design orientated, visually design orientated. And I chose architecture. I practiced architecture I studied for 5 years, and I practiced architecture for about 7 or 8 years. And that's basically where it started off for me. And then one day I went to the UK on a bit of a how can I say, like a sabbatical to go and do some work there. It didn't work out for me. I ended up coming back after about 4 or 5 months with no money, completely broke. I'd worked my butt off. I didn't get paid by the boss I was working for there. So times were tough. I came back. I jumped into a large corporate company, which completely killed my desire for working in an architectural environment. And I started personal training.
Okay.
Now, just to take 1 or 2 steps back, what I actually did was, when I was in high school, I used to go to extra maths lessons, and I always used to get dropped off at extra maths lessons about 45 minutes sooner than I should have been in class. And in Randburg there was a shop that sold magazines. I'm talking about Muscle and Fitnesses and Flexes. They sold them by the kilo. So, I'd take a little bit of tuck money that I had or had left over from that day, and I'd buy myself a couple of Flex and Muscular Development and Muscle and Fitness magazines. And that's basically where it started for me, like the era of Dorian Yates, Kevin Nevrones, Nasser El-Sambati, Paul Dillett, who I obviously have the honor of working with and working with personally. And that's where my passion for magazines came in. I was just getting into training. I was just starting to put on a little bit of size, and these guys were obviously like the top tier in the world. And I just kept on buying magazines. So, jumping back to the future tense again, I was completely sick and tired of the architectural world. I needed a break. I needed to get out and get out of the corporate world. I gave Arnold Khoos at the time a call, and I said, listen, I need to get out of architecture. What can you help me with? And he said, well, I've just opened a personal training studio. Why don't you come here? Let's see if we can get you some clients. Look, that was a good 13 years ago, I didn't have a qualification. I just had experience behind me. I knew how to train. I knew how to train people. And for 2 years, I did personal training.
Wow.
Throughout those years of having that break in between, your morning clients and your afternoon clients, we would sit in the shop, obviously waiting for potential new clients to come in.
Yes.
There was nothing else to do but read old magazines.
Okay.
And one day I said to Arnold, there's no local magazine here that's created for our local industry. It's all international, and that's basically how the idea sparked.
Wow.
I met my ex-wife Tanya
Yes,
through, she was actually one of my personal training clients.
Okay.
She was a graphic designer, so it was the perfect hand-in-hand, situation where I decided I wanted to put a magazine
Stars
together,
aligned.
and she was a designer.
Yeah.
So I put all the content together, sold a little bit of advertising, we put a magazine together, and as I say, the rest is history.
So now you've done this, you start up the magazine. Like, the early days couldn't have been easy. Trying to juggle everything, like the mags and still keeping your personal training business going, etc. I sort of often find myself in that kind of conundrum because I don't do this as a day job, guys. Like I have another day job, and this is my passion. And I mean, how did you actually? I mean, surely funding was funding might have been an issue, whatever the case is. Print is hugely expensive, even though you might sell advertising space. I mean, that working capital to actually build a relationship with your printer and all of those kind of things. Yeah. Did you ever want to just sort of say, nah, screw this, I'm throwing in the towel?
We almost gave up. Muscle Evolution, obviously being the brand we started with, for the first 2 years of creating the magazine, we would either break even, advertising wise and sales wise, and basically what we were doing at the end of the day was we were gathering all the advertising money and we were gathering all the money from sales, and we were literally handing it over to the printer and saying thank you very much.
Where was the salary?
No, there was no salary for the first 2 years. That's why I had to rely on personal training to fulfill the rest of the money that was needed. But when I say the rest is history, it actually means the start of the struggle. For 2 years, it was an absolute struggle. We struggled to find people, when I say people, I mean supplement owners, and people in the industry.
Everything was sort of burgeoning at that time.
Correct. Yeah. But it took us a long time to find people that took us seriously. People in order to convince people that we were going to stick around. Yeah. And that we were going to do what we did from an industry promotional point of view. Another problem we had in the beginning was we weren't publishers. We were I was an architect, I was a personal trainer, Tanya was a graphic designer. We didn't know how to put magazines together.
Ins and outs of publishing.
It took a long time of diluted content to really establish what our readers wanted and what the market wanted. But the minute we changed the magazine from you'll notice right in the beginning it used to be called South Africa's #1 weight training and fitness magazine. The minute we changed it to South Africa's #1 bodybuilding magazine, our sales shot up, our interest shot up, and we just started selling magazines all over the country. Wow. That's basically when the opportunity came to obviously step out of the personal training game and focus my efforts solely on the magazine.
Yeah. Well done. Wow. Okay, so you're strong in South Africa now, and we touched on India. What is the plan sort of there? I mean, as an Indian, I know, and I have family there still. The Indian people are hugely passionate. We're passionate about food. We're passionate about our movie stars. We're passionate about everything, and we're very passionate about muscle, especially over in India. I think you've seen it. Looking at your pictures and stuff on Facebook when you're there, they're going absolutely crazy. Just being in your presence, kind of a thing. So, what's the plan going forward there, etc.?
Well, it's taken
if you don't mind. Yeah.
No, not at all. It's taken a long time to get everything set up from a business perspective. A lot of red tape in India. Me being an international businessman that wants to invest in India, we've partnered up with a fantastic individual in India who's going to be helping us out there. So there's been a lot of red tape to get the government approvals and get the business documentation set up, etc., etc. The Indian market with respect to bodybuilding or fitness is probably around where we were 15 years ago, where things were just ready to boom. There's a lot of guys training, a lot of guys want to get in shape, but you'll go to a gym and you'll see people doing the strangest things. People don't really know how to train. So with a little bit of guidance, and obviously, if we can create a great magazine that people there can accept as their own and actually learn from, then I think we should be able to sort of repeat history as to what we've done here in South Africa.
Awesome. that's a huge market as well. I mean,
It
a
is.
billion people.
It's huge.
Jeez. So with regard to sort of, okay, I know maybe you guys are still in the setup phase, but like, have you sort of thought about circulation and those kind of things? What are you guys going to do? Sort of start small and sort of expand, or?
Well, it's different to South Africa in that obviously India is massive, and we have to start off slowly building in each territory in India. It's not like South Africa here where we drop off, a certain amount of magazines and then just distribute nationally.
Yes.
It doesn't work like that in India. We have to approach each territory differently.
Because you have different players maybe in each territory.
Correct. So
Okay.
we'll have multiple distributors in India for multiple areas.
Okay. And what are you guys going in with it? Just bodybuilding focused, or also like the fitness mags, etc.?
We're not going in bodybuilding focused at all. Bodybuilding will be the smaller section of the magazine. Definitely the fitness. Even though the brand that we'll be using is Muscle Evolution, the content will primarily be based around the fitness market, the hardcore fitness market, because that is what the majority of the market wants.
Okay.
But we'll have a bit of everything. We'll have a babe feature. We'll have some bodybuilding, but primarily it's going to be about building a great fitness physique.
Awesome. Okay. Quick question before we break. You are one of my biggest influences in, shall I say, in my endeavors in terms of why I got into all of this. You, probably Peter McGough, in terms of style, etc. For yourself, who would you say your biggest influences, both maybe within the publishing or bodybuilding space? I know Arnold definitely was a huge influence on your life.
Yeah.
I know you guys had a really good relationship. But outside of that, who do you sort of admire in this kind of a space?
I admire people that always challenge the status quo. What I mean by that, I obviously still read a lot of international magazines, and I like to read articles where people challenge the current trends. And as you know, recently, we've had a lot of deviation from what we would deem as good bodybuilding.
Yes.
Even Arnold Schwarzenegger himself stood up recently and said he's not happy with the state of bodybuilding and things need to change. We need more people like that. We need, and especially in South Africa, we've got a couple of really great federations here, but we've got people that just sit back and conform to whatever it is that they're being told to conform to. There's not a lot of people that are really using the initiative to change things themselves. They'll sit back and wait for some kind of directive from the international group of execs, etc. But I think here in South Africa, I'm not happy with a lot of things that are going on, which maybe we'll get into a bit later. But at the moment, look, like people that really inspire me, like I say, are the Mavericks. The people like Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, who are constantly questioning the current state. Peter McGough as well. He's a great writer. He's been writing for so long about bodybuilding, and some of the other top writers that just really are constantly questioning, why things might be the way they are, and asking, can we change it and get back to the true essence
of what it was.
The essence of what it was. Because I think when you don't control things from an aesthetic point of view, things start slipping out of the way.
Which is what we have seen happening.
Which is what we have seen happening.
Okay, you alluded as to the state of bodybuilding worldwide. Let's talk about the South African industry at the moment. What do you think of, are we going on that path of non-aestheticness? What do you think about bodybuilding in SA in general commentary?
I'm very happy that there are a lot more opportunities available now than there have been over the past couple of years. The IFBB now are bringing in the Arnold. We've got the Amateur Olympia.
Yes.
So there's a lot more opportunities being created for athletes to step on more, more important stages.
Yes.
Okay. In saying that, I don't think that the South African bodybuilding industry is as organic as it used to be. People are slowly but surely being restricted to where they're allowed to compete, who they're allowed to compete with, and to a certain extent, I've had meetings with a couple of high-level individuals in the industry. I do understand the reasoning behind this, because with all these platforms being created, you know, for people to just jump from federation to federation and think that they can be allowed to step on international stages, it doesn't really make sense. And I mean, you do have to earn your stripes at the end of the day. So if you want to compete internationally with the IFBB, for instance, I mean, I do respect the fact that they require loyalty. I just think that from a very amateur level, in other words, a very beginner, novice level, people shouldn't be
allowed to feel their way around, kind of.
People should be allowed to feel their way around. Experience the pageants, experience the bodybuilding shows, experience all there is, and then slowly but surely work your way into your niche of the industry that you will probably excel at. One thing I don't like is that there are a lot of people that are still hovering around, athletes, when I say people I mean athletes, that are hovering around that haven't really been given a clear indication of where their strengths lie. I.e., you would be better at a pageant, or you definitely have an IFBB physique, or you definitely have a NABA type physique, you know. And I think that's very unfair on the athletes. Because they'll be competing in the same federation for year after year, when in fact
you might do better in
they might have done better, or wasted 3 years in one federation when they could have been excelling in another. So I think there needs to be a very clear cut and concise idea as to coaches giving people the correct information as to where they are best suited. You know?
I suppose that comes down to sort of education, self-education.
Correct.
I mean, what I've been finding with the blog, and I get a lot of questions like this, is like, yeah, have a look at me, where do you think I fit in? You know, but the first thing I always ask them is like, what are your goals? You know, where do you want to be within the sport in the first place? And I agree with you, a lot of people, though I mean, bodybuilding is a subjective sport. That's what everyone, I think you have to acknowledge, as much as we try and make it objective, you know, it's, even the judging is based on a person's opinion of your physique at the end of the day. So, yeah, I'll tend to agree with you. But also on the same token, I think our athletes must sort of up the game in terms of their self-education, etc.
Correct, 100%. But let me tell you one of the biggest problems with that. In my mind, and it's the reason why people do need coaches, honest, brutally honest coaches, is when someone enters a 12 to 16 week diet plan, the closer they get to contest, and you even see, even the top guys in the world will openly admit this, they get to a stage in their prep where they literally go onto autopilot. They can't think for themselves. They think they're in the best shape of their life, but they need someone to constantly be behind them saying, we're not hard enough in the back, we're not big enough in the legs, or we're not, we're not good enough here, good enough there. And I think that, being a competitive athlete, you lose track of reality, if I may say that, to a certain point as you get closer to contest.
And you know this yourself.
And I know this myself. Yes. And I think it's vitally important to have someone from a neutral perspective outside to say, you're not the right look for this, or you're not the right look for that, and you are the right look for this. You need someone to give you that direction. Yes. Otherwise, you're dieting 12, 16 weeks, you're sacrificing a lot.
Yeah.
From, if you're a business owner, personally, I know how much sacrifice it takes to get into that kind of shape. Your family suffers, your friends, your social environment suffers a lot. So if you're going to be doing it, I think it's best that you know that you're doing it and your time is well spent and you're entering the correct categories.
Yes.
Otherwise, all that's going to end up happening is you're going to be placing sixth, and then you're going to be wondering,
With regard to, we spoke about the growth in India and growth in South Africa. Do you think we've hit a ceiling here, any saturation points, etc.?
I think fitness in South Africa is growing. There's a lot of new faces and a lot of new people that want to come into the sport here. But bodybuilding itself, if you ask me, I think bodybuilding has taken a bit of a back step. A few years ago, we used to have lineups where you'd have the best athletes in the country, in the best shape of their lives, struggling to pick a top six, struggling to pick an overall winner. These days, I think that work ethic has slacked off a little bit, okay? There's too much of a stigma around gear use, drug use, okay? And people thinking that that's going to make them harder, that's going to make them better, fuller, bigger, whatever it is. there's definitely a lack of work ethic when it comes to competing. And there are only today, I only find a select few individuals that really can dial it into shape. I'm seeing athletes these days that have been on stage every year for the past 10 years that are just going backwards and backwards with their conditioning.
You don't give your body a chance to recover and come in better actually next time if you do because that's the other thing is like we do have a lot of shows now and you might actually burn yourself out, like doing 4 shows a year. Before in the past, you went, those like provincials and then you went kind of like sort of that route.
I think it's a double-edged sword, Dubs. I think that you'll get an athlete that will take 4 shows to get into the shape of his life.
True, as well, yes. Yeah.
But then you'll get an athlete that will do 4 shows but burn out by the show that he intends to really peak at. Personally, I'm not a firm believer in getting buys at provincials and going straight to essays, because I'm a firm believer that dialing in for one show 2 or 3 weeks before the main show can assist you to get even harder for the last show. That's my own personal.
Which is why we still see guys like Carlos, I suppose, doing provincials, even though they might have a buy. I mean, he's been like 7-time champion, etc. So
it forces them to get the prep right sooner and then maintain the show.
Yeah. Okay. So, being who you are and building your status in the industry, etc. I'm sure you get a lot of inquiries for sponsorships or to hook up people, etc. From Andrew Carruthers to the world out there, or the bodybuilding industry in South Africa. I know you guys do seminars for education. Love it. I will be attending the next one. But what do you have to say to like those kind of guys? You get a lot of athletes these days that they compete for 1 year, and it's like, hey, I need something, and I should be on that magazine, or I should be this, sponsored by these guys, etc. Like, we spoke about earning your stripes, and we spoke, these days it's a very quick gratification kind of a thing. You know what I mean? What do you have to say to those kind of people?
There are a lot of people that misinterpret how we structure things like front covers, for instance. I mean, Muscle Evolution off the bat is very simple. It's the biggest, most shredded, or the up and coming kind of guy. Fitness, I constantly get bombarded by men sending me messages wondering why their wives haven't been on the front cover of Muscle of Fitness magazine. And I have to be brutally honest, and I have to say, listen, your wife unfortunately is more of a Muscle Evolution kind of girl. She's either too big or she's too muscular. She doesn't carry the look. Fitness is obviously a very softer, more smaller, more
the attainable physique.
Look. Yes, the attainable physique, and that's what the market wants here, and that's something that we've learned through trial and tribulation of 13 years of publishing. You put something out there, it doesn't sell well. Then you put something out there and it sells well. What are you going to do? You're going to promote the look that the people want and the look that the readers want. Sponsorships in this country are a major headache for me, in that the minute an athlete starts building a semi-decent physique, there's this sort of internal clock which ticks over, in that people think that they suddenly deserve a sponsorship. And I ask myself, as a business owner, often ask people, I say to them, okay, so what do you want from a sponsorship? And they'll say to me, well, I want to brand my car, I want them to send me overseas. There's a complete lack of understanding as to what a sponsorship really is. People think a sponsorship is about a big supplement company giving to them in the hope that they'll grow into a really big superstar here locally or internationally. And that company should merely fund their career.
Growth, yes.
That growth. But it's not. Basically, at the end of the day, as a business owner, I understand that if I'm going to sponsor somebody, what are they going to give me in return? Well, without me having to fork out so much money for their supposed career, which hasn't really reached the top as yet. Plus, if I'm a top brand or a top company owner, I want the best people representing my brand. I don't just want to take people that are potentially great at what they do, but then they fall off the bandwagon 2 years later. I've now invested
Yes.
so much time and effort and money into someone that's now decided to go and have a family and have kids and abandon bodybuilding, you know. So I think there's a gross misunderstanding in the market as to what sponsorships are really about. It's not about, you know, and I'm going to sound like Uncle Sam here, it's not about what you can do for, it's not about what the supplement company can do for you, it's about what you can do for them. You know?
But I mean, if you look at it in the States, you look at guys like Kai and everybody, people don't realize they toiled for so long. You saw someone like Muscle Mez, I mean, with the exception of, I mean, you're seeing younger and younger guys getting picked up these days, like the Justin Comptons or the Antoine Valance or whatever the case is. But I mean, even so, it's exactly as you say, it's like, it's the long-term commitment to the sport. And you know what I mean? Like, people see it as a career path and they see it as something that they're going to give back into, basically. And back to their sponsors, and indirectly they're giving back, or directly they're giving back to their sponsors.
Another thing a lot of people don't understand these days is that back in the days of the 80s and the 90s, it used to be about taking a great physique, taking a great photo, putting a product next to them, having something really cool to say about this person, and that's sold.
And that's sold, yes.
Nowadays, it's not about what you look like. It's not about how many shows you win. I mean, there are simply people out there that are winning all the shows that are not marketable entities, you know. And we live in a world where people want to see the best of everything, and you know, if you're not a really good looking guy, or you're not a really good looking female, you're not going to sell well on a poster. You know, you're not going to sell well in a magazine. So the guys that are really looking for athletes that they want as their brand ambassadors are taking the entire picture into consideration. You know, who are you as a person? Do you have a great reputation in the industry? Sure, you've got a great physique and you're winning competitions, okay? But are you a great ambassador? You know, do you inspire people? Do you motivate people? Do you actually go out there?
How do you carry yourself in public?
How do you carry yourself in public? I don't want to attach my brand to front cover individuals that have nothing nice to say out there in the public space, but yet I've got them in the magazine.
Yes.
You know, because then people look at me and they go,
it's a representation of who you are.
correct, it's a
brand,
representation of the brand, which I think is really important. A lot of people miss that.
Yes. With regard to all these demands, like, you know, how do you actually manage all of this sort of? I mean, like you said, we have people contacting you about their wives being on the cover, or they know that you have a connection with either supplement companies or whatever the case is. You know, do you? I don't know how many of these requests or anything like that you get actually, or how, because
there's only one way to deal with it, and that is to be straightforward and straight to the point. There's no beating around the bush for me, and unfortunately, a lot of people might judge me as arrogant if they don't know me very well. You know, if someone comes to me at a show and says to me, you know, they're really upset, but why didn't I place so well? And I'll say, well, you know, your legs need a bit of work, or your condition needs a bit of work. And people sort of look at me with this like shocked and horrified, sort of like, how could you say that? And then I want to say to them, well, if you've got the guts to come and ask me why you just didn't place higher than the guy who beat you, then, you know, have the balls to really take it and use it as constructive information. And then come back another day, you know, come back and fight another day. People don't like to be told what their weaknesses are. People don't like to admit what their weaknesses are. And it's the same with the covers, you know, if people message us and say, well, why am I not this or why am I not that? And then I'll be brutally honest with them, and most of the time I don't get such a great response because people think I'm being arrogant, when in fact I'm just being honest.
Yes. How do you think we can improve things within the South African bodybuilding landscape, bodybuilding fitness landscape? And I'm talking, you can give it to me broadly, give it to me focused, whatever.
I would love to see the shows of old where there was no question as to the top 6 or top 12 guys in that lineup were the best in the country. You know, not separated by federation, not separated by politics, not separated by the threat of not being allowed to compete internationally if they stand on another stage. You know, for me, bodybuilding is like a sweet shop. Okay, if I want to walk into a sweet shop and I want strawberry jelly beans, I don't want to be told I can only eat pineapple jelly beans. It's basically that. As an amateur, I feel that people should be able to move around freely and compete in all the different federations and shows and different styles of shows that we have available here in South Africa. The platform's never been bigger. There's never been more opportunities for people, okay? But I do agree with the meeting I had with Wayne, where he said to me, if people decide that they want to become an IFBB pro one day, they have to show the loyalty, which I do agree with. You know, we bumped heads a lot in the past, and sitting down with him and really sort of explaining it to each other, I do understand where they're coming from there, especially from the international side. And I think it's important that, you know, you find your niche in this industry and you stick to it, and you be loyal to the federation that you want to compete in. With that being said, it kills the element of that I mentioned earlier, of having all the best athletes in the country on one stage. I mean, we had the Muscle Evolution Grand Prix at one stage a good couple of years ago, and I'd love to bring that show back, but unfortunately it's not going to have the same effect it used to, because we had John Leslie, we had Michael Adonis, we had Louis Bessinger, we had all these top guys on that stage, and that was the only time you've seen them all together. You won't find that anymore. Unfortunately now, times have changed and people have to make a decision as to where they compete. That's what's sad for me, because, you know, federations aside, I love bodybuilding. I am incredibly passionate about bodybuilding, and I would love to go to a show to see the absolute best of the best. Not a selection of the best, because they decided to go and compete somewhere else. You know, I don't know if times will change, but I think those days are over, which is probably one of the saddest elements of the South African bodybuilding industry that I deal with on a daily basis at the moment. There's not much I can do about it, because it's all political, and it's all become, how can you say, law and governed by the certain federations. But I do understand it, and I do understand why these things are in place. So I'm not knocking any federations, or I'm not knocking any ideals. It's just sad to say that we won't see any of the top guys all on one stage.
Which should be probably the most, I mean, for me, I agree with you, in terms of seeing, for us as audience members,
correct,
you know, as entertainment, because that's what a bodybuilding show is. It's you go there to support your guys, yes, your family members, etc. But I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding as a whole, whether you fitness, whether you know, whatever. I mean, yeah, that opportunity, wow.
You've touched on something which I want to touch on quickly as well, the entertainment factor.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's look at all the platforms that have been created over the past couple of years. There are so many shows, there are so many federations, there are so many opportunities. Okay, but let's look at things from a strictly crowd perspective.
Yes.
Has the entertainment factor at shows improved? It's still much like a militant way of running things on stage. The lineups are done the same way.
Yeah.
You know, the costumes and that surely, you know, things change. Posing changes every now and then, and it customizes itself from year to year. But has the actual entertainment value?
Yes. And I can tell you, as a person that has to sit through shows, when I do my reviews, etc., I mean, if you go to a movie, you know you're going to be there for 2.5 hours. You know, boom, bang, you're entertained, you walk out, and you're left feeling like you want more, actually. You know, or you're left feeling with, like, okay, if it's a drama, you know, if you like that kind of thing, or action, or whatever, you're left feeling like, wow, that like fulfilled you. And the thing is, I come to watch a family member or a friend or whatever the case is. I don't know anyone else in that show. So I do think the entertainment factor needs to be hugely considered, and the efficiency of running of shows, actually.
Yes.
So I agree with you 100%.
I'm a big believer in pre-judging before shows.
Yes.
Live judging for me is
too long.
It doesn't work.
Too long, yeah.
People don't want to sit in a community hall until 1:30 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not. You know, it's not. It's a process that needs to take place, but the promoters of these shows need to understand that there needs to be a certain entertainment value, you know, with the show. Because that's what's going to draw the crowd at the end of the day, you know.
That's what keeps the sport alive, yeah.
That's what's going to keep the sport alive. You know, WBFF has opened my eyes a lot in that, look, I mean, it's purely fitness now. It had a little bit of bodybuilding, you know, in it in the beginning, and now it's purely fitness. But it opened my eyes to the fact that there are better ways of entertaining the crowd.
Yes.
Which is what it's about. You can still showcase a physique. You can still judge physiques, okay? But it's almost like some of the other federations are just too scared to move into the entertainment factor. You know, we used to have a couple of shows where guys were allowed props on stage, you know, private shows. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see
the showmanship.
More people putting their efforts into their routines, you know, because that's where the entertainment value lies.
Indeed,
in coming to watch these shows. And I think
now they were interviewing Arnold, actually. Funny you say that. And at the Arnold Classic Ohio, Arnold himself said on this video that I watched that they had Cedric ahead in the morning, but because of Kai's posing, they actually judged him on posing. They judge posing now at the Arnold Classic.
That's fantastic.
So maybe we'll be seeing something like that at our Arnold Classic. I'm not sure if they're going to implement those kind of rules down there, but it would be nice. But basically, he said Arnold took Kai took it because of his posing. So to you guys out there, maybe put a bit more effort if you're planning on doing Arnold Classic or anything actually this year with regard to posing, etc.
Well, the advice I can give you is you're going to be training your butts off for the shows. You're going to be doing a couple of 10, 15, 30-minute posing sessions after each training session, or you should be. But are you actually aware of what it is you're going to do when you get on that stage, and you get told to do that posing routine? Are you merely going to walk on stage and just do the compulsory poses and expect the crowd to sort of cheer for you? Or are you actually going to go out there and really put on a show? I think that's important.
Mr. Carruthers, so where to from here, with the mags? What's the future holding for you guys, sort of within the space, within the country, outside the country, etc.?
Well, we're going through a massive transformation at the moment where a lot of things are moving online. Yes. So our websites have been completely revamped. We are busy with the magazines only coming out every second month. We're obviously losing a lot of time in between.
Yes.
But we are using the websites to fulfill with the likes of interviews, articles, things that we can keep people up to speed with while they're waiting for the next magazine. We've got, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, we've got inroads into India, so we'll be launching pretty soon in India with the Muscle Evolution brand. And I've got high hopes of moving into the UK space as well, because I really don't feel that the UK guys also have this kind of concept where it's 100% promoting local industry and local content.
Yeah, they have the international publications, which sort of is a version of
Correct. And I mean, it's so easy just to get an international publication license, grab all their content, throw it in a magazine,
recycle it,
stick it on a shelf, and just expect people to buy it. But that's not, for me, that's not where the passion lies. The passion lies in promoting the people who run the local industry. And those are the foundational bricks that these magazines are built on, local content.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, we do venture into the international space, if we do feel that we've got one or two candidates that could really have something to offer. I've been wanting to work with Greg Plitt for so long, but unfortunately with his passing, it's an honour for me to be able to put him on the cover, even after he's unfortunately no longer with us.
In closing, we have spoken to the guys out there, etc. But for 2016 or for the future, what do you have to say to everyone out there? Barring the politics and all of those kind of things, message of hope, message of anything from the Maverick himself.
Don't be pushed into doing things that you don't want to do. Allow yourself to explore all avenues of this industry. Don't let anyone push you into a certain category you might not feel that you fit into. Bring back the work ethic that used to be here in South Africa. I don't think there's enough of a work ethic. I think it's just, I see people training. I don't see people training as hard as they really should. People relying too much on diet, too much on whatever else it is to get them into shape. I think that work ethic is seriously lacking. I'd like to see the bodybuilders really, dialing it in and getting their condition 100% better for shows. As an industry as a whole, I think, we are very strong on social media. What I would love to see in the social media space is a lot more people coming together, promoting one another, really encouraging each other. Ideally, at the end of the day, the only person who you're competing against is the person you were last year. So, give each other the hope of camaraderie. I think there's so many people and so many there's so much animosity of people versus each other in this industry at the moment, and I'd really like to see us come together for the better of the sport and actually create a unique dynamic where we can assist each other instead of criticize each other, and really move forward as an industry. I mean, my only care in this game is that the sport as a whole moves forward. I want all the federations to flourish. I want to see more pro athletes. I want to see a lot more people coming from the ground up, and I think with the right amount of education and the right amount of work as a unit, we can do that in promoting the sport. It's a dream, it's a hope, and I hope that together as an industry or as a family, we can do that. Break through the politics and
set aside our differences
and move into the future.
Sir, it's been an honor.
Thank you.
I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time.
Not at all. I appreciate it.
And I look forward to working with you and seeing you around in future.
Great.
Okay, guys, there you have it. From the boss's mouth, directly. So let's try and be what Mr. Carruthers has said. As an industry, we see it still in the pro levels at the Olympia and all of those kind of things. I mean, rivalries are always good. It's so in my opinion, it's always good for the sport. But at the end of the day, let's remember that we love the same thing. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't love bodybuilding. So I think that's a great takeaway. And once again, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much.